And press record. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the East Windsor Town Council Amenities and Tourism Committee. This meeting will be recorded. The recording will appear on the council's website in a few days. In order to vote, councillors are asked to show their hand to the camera and hold it up until advised by the chair. To indicate that you wish to speak during any item, please use the raise hand button on the Zoom functions. This is in different places depending on your device. Please locate it and use it to be recognised. It helps both myself and the Vice Chair. Item 1, public participation. The public are invited to attend the virtual meetings via a link which will be sent out to every member of the public. They may ask questions under the council's remits or make representation on a matter that is on the agenda. Speaking is guided by the council's standing orders available on the website. You should indicate that you wish to speak by using raising your hand button. The Vice Chairman will select the speakers in turn to minimise the time limit. If you wish to be recognised, you are recommended to contact the Town Clerk beforehand. There is no before the meeting will do their best to ensure that you are able to speak. There is no right to reply, and your question or representation must not last longer than 2 minutes. Other than when you ask a question, your microphone should be kept on mute. Should you wish to circulate anything to the committee, this should be done by the Town Clerk. Is there any public participation, Town Clerk?
The only member of the public who's present is Councillor Jackie Russell from West Sussex County Council. She hasn't registered to speak. She's just here to observe and to offer any assistance if called upon.
Thank you. Apologies for absence. Town Clerk, do we have any apologies for absence this evening?
I think you are a full committee with the exception of Councillor Osborne. Has anybody heard from Councillor Osborne? No? In which case then he's not present. But otherwise, everybody is.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. Any councillors who have any interest should declare it now.
There's one from me, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, I'm a member of the Badger Trust. That's the agenda item on Queen's Road Cemetery.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to item 4, to approve the minutes of the meetings held on the 17th of September and the 28th of September 2020. I'd like to start with the 17th of September. Can I have a proposer to accept the minutes?
I'm happy to propose, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Please can I have a second? Thank you, Councillor. I don't know where I'm looking there.
Mrs. Rainstone.
Councillor Woodgate. My eyes are all over the screen. Councillor Woodgate. Thank you. If I can look to accept those minutes, if everyone could raise their hands to accept.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Chairman,
I'd like to move on.
Councillor DeBell is still having difficulty with his camera, but he can hear you, and I think he's going to be using his voting hand by raising his hand. So just watch out for that for when he votes, because I don't think you'll be able to see him. And
thank you very much.
Is just joining us.
Thank you so much, Julie. That's absolutely spot on. Doesn't matter what I try, I can't get my video going. I think it's my wife's using all the Wi-Fi upstairs. I do apologise, Chair, and to all the committee.
Thank you, Town Mayor. I'll keep an eye out for your raised hand. Have my eyes on that side of the screen. Moving on, I'd like to approve the minutes of the meeting dated the 28th of September 2020. Please can I have a proposer to accept those?
I'm happy to propose, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Please may I have a second? I've got Councillor Woodgate. I think he's just in the middle of my screen. And I can please show hands to approve the minutes.
That's carried.
Thank you. Moving on, Chairman's announcements. I just wanted to update you on St Margaret's Loop. There's still some negotiation going on. West Sussex County Council are about to release the figure needed to commute the bridge's repairs. Once they have this and the railway path agree to pay it, we can finally complete and complete the transfer and then plan the work to start. It has been slow going, but this communicated sum is important to minimise any funds needed from the town council. So it's still in motion and it's still taking place, and every meeting we're a little bit closer. The clock, that is still, we're in discussion with the Town Museum about them having the clock from the end of London Road. We've retained financial commitment for the clock, to remove the clock and have it taken down, which we will do in this financial year, and we'll find it a new home. And I have one other announcement, which is hot off the press. The Meridian Hall will be used for the COVID vaccinations for East Grinstead. At the moment, there are no more details, but we do know that it's coming this way and we'll be hosting those vaccinations. So we'll share as and when we have any more details. All right. Moving on to item 6, the town promotions report. Mrs. Spalding's report is enclosed for consideration, and this report is for noting. Dawn has now moved on and has left us, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank her on record and wish her well. As you can see, the gift has been purchased, and I do hope that she can tell the time with that. Apparently you can. So I'm sure she has more skills with me. I think I'd be running late for everything. So I'd just like it noted that we'd like to thank her for her many years of hard work. I know she's really enjoyed that position that she had, and hopefully she will now enjoy the time that she's got at home. Do we have any questions on that town promotions report? No? Okay.
Councillor Amos has his hand up, Chair.
Oh, Councillor Amos, I beg your pardon.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've got 2 questions after reading the report. Do you really think it's an appropriate use of taxpayers' money to spend money on colouring books? And if the council weren't consulted, what's the justification, colouring pages rather, for funding such colouring pages? And secondly, I want to talk about the town council applying for grants. Now, from my understanding, the town council applies for grants from Mid Sussex and the county council. And that obviously takes out time for town council employees. Why are we doing that and therefore wasting money when we could simply raise the money ourselves, save the searching, and get the county council and the district council to reduce down the grants they give? And that way money would be saved. Why are we going through this ridiculous process of asking for money from essentially the same taxpayers and spending money doing that searching? It just seems absurd to me.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Town Clerk, would you like to take those 2 points?
Yes, Chair, happy to respond. With regards
Thank
to
you.
the colouring pages, this is just part of the children's activities that we do provide during school holidays, and we've done it for a long time, been approved by this committee. On the whole, certainly this year, they've been posted up onto our social media and onto our website, so they can be downloaded. So it doesn't necessarily cost us anything, but we do have some copies of the colouring pages, so they can be taken. So it certainly isn't a big expense with regards to running off a few pages from the printer. And as I said, this is something that has been approved and is part of the tourism budget, which we've had for many years. With regards to grants, you raise a very interesting point, because Mid Sussex District Council have now determined that we're no longer allowed to apply to their grants for Eastcourt Live or for any events that we now run, anything that's annual, they do not expect us to apply to them. They're not going to be reducing their own grants. They'll still be available for all community groups to apply to, but they've decided that the parish council will not be, and they're also going to be encouraging community groups to apply to the parish councils rather than applying to the district council going forward. So we could find that actually our grant applications go up significantly, and we have a quite pressure put upon us with regards to increasing our own grants funds that we make available to the public. That's something that will come forward next year. We've only just been informed about this at the moment, so I'm not looking necessarily, unless instructed by committee, to look at increasing our grants budget for next year. But I suspect following next year's applications, we may find that we have to look at the amount that we are putting out. And that will, of course, be a matter for F&GP to consider at that time as to whether or not they feel there is a need, a requirement for us to increase our grants, because the district will potentially not be making theirs available. But at the moment, they haven't reduced their grant pot. They've just said we're no longer eligible, so we won't be applying next year.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Are there any more questions? Can't see any more hands raised. So I'm going to move on to item 7, which is the Estates and Community Services Report. Mrs. Merrick's report is enclosed. I take it that you have already. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask about?
Councillor Matthews, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, there's three items that I've got a question on. St Margaret's Loop. Can Mrs. Merrick, through you, Chairman, confirm that all our trees now are fully loaded and logged, and we're up to scratch on that? That's one. 2, on the winter maintenance, I'm not quite sure what it means with the towable salt spreader. The last sentence says, which does not include any pavements. Probably my memory playing tricks on me, but does that spreader that we got actually do the pavements? And the third item is the Bow Bell mark, and the one at London Road outside the British Heart Foundation, it says it's in poor condition. That's quite a bit of East Grinstead's history. What can be done to further preserve it? So that's the 3 points. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Mrs. Merrick.
Thank you. All the trees have been noted, they've all been surveyed. The only works that we've got is in St Margaret's Loop, because planning permission, because they've all got tree preservation, has just taken a very long time. It's taken, I think, months to get the actual permissions through, and it's just come through. And that should be, we're almost at the end of finishing all the works on the survey, which was quite a lot this year just to get everything up. But yes, we are, we've completed the risk assessment, and the next year the plan is to sort of start a 10-year management program, and actually some replanting, and because obviously we've lost quite a few and we now need to sort of relook at that. So that's the trees. The salt spreader, if I confused everybody, I apologise. So yes, it is going to do the pavements. West Sussex don't do pavements. Up until recently, we've just, the outdoor services team have pushed that very heavy salt spreader, and this is hopefully going to get us round the pavements much quicker and give us a situation that if we have got a lot of snow, we can move on and assist where the committee feel we can be of some help. It's very hard for us to usually get on and help sort of refill any grit bins if we have enough grit, because it's taken us so long to get round the pavements around the town. But hopefully we can sort of be quicker at sorting that out and help keep everybody moving. So yeah, they're very pleased with the piece of kit, so hopefully that should all go well. We haven't used it yet, obviously, but You know, it was agreed last committee, you know, last year, and this is going through. And the last question was,
The
sorry,
Bow Bell marker.
well, I don't know is the answer. The two either down London Road and out sort of towards Ashurst Wood are in sort of very good condition, but that one is, over the years, it's got low, and I think the West Sussex must have put the pavement must have gone higher, because it's a long way up the Bow Bell marker. You can't see. I mean, it's right touching the bells, and it's definitely sort of coming away. So, I mean, they have rubbed it back as have, and we sort of put some preserve on and painted it. But yeah, I don't know how long it's going to last, but it'll be all right for the time. But it is in poor condition. But it's also right inside the pavement, so. And I have no idea how much, you know, new ones cost, if that's what the council feel, but it's not necessarily, as you say, it's ours for history, but not necessarily our responsibility, but nobody else will look after it if we don't.
Can I come back, Chairman?
Yes, please do, Councillor Matthews.
Just to say thank you to Mrs. Merrick, and for us to keep an eye on that marker and maintain it as best we can. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I have Councillor Amos.
Thank you. I was looking at the cost per incidence of graffiti, which comes to £75 for 1.5 hours labour. Could you explain to me the breakdown of expenditure for that? Because it seems quite expensive, given the fact, you know, minimum wage is £10.
That isn't the costs by us. That's the costs that West Sussex were proposing. We used to get a lump sum from them every year of Town Clerk. Can you remember the amount off the top of your head?
No, I can't.
I just can't remember, sorry. But they were proposing to reduce the cost to just paying per graffiti every time we sort of reported that we cleared graffiti for them. However, I think next year that is changing again, and we will not be getting any money next year. Is that true, Town Clerk?
I'm just right. Okay. I think we need to go back a little bit, because I'm not quite sure. I don't think that's exactly what Councillor Amos was asking. But to deal with that part first, we used to get paid a lump sum amount from the county council to deal with graffiti. That changed this year, and we now get paid per attendance for removal of graffiti. And so we'll come back to that, because I think that's what your question actually is. Going forward for next year, there is no money for graffiti, as Councillor Amos is aware, because we discussed this at the Mid-Sussex meeting. There's no money for graffiti next year. Instead, West Sussex County Council will be responding to any graffiti on their property themselves. So that's the position going forward for next year. But what Councillor Amos is asking is how do we justify the £75 cost that we've made to the county council for 1.5 hours work of graffiti removal?
But that it wasn't us justifying it. That was the proposal made that West Sussex said they would pay us this year.
Right, thank you. So
it was their decision, not ours.
So we've reported to the county council that we've done 1.5 hours worth of work, and they've paid us £75 as a result of that. We didn't bill them for £75. They have paid us £75.
If that was the amount they said they would pay.
I hope
May
that
I come back on that, Chairman?
Yes, please do, Councillor Amos.
So of the money spent on getting rid of the graffiti, what is the composition of costs, irrespective of which council authority pays for it?
Can I, listening to the Town Clerk, Councillor Amos, that wasn't agreed by our Town Council, so we don't know how West Sussex came to that figure. Is that correct, Town Clerk?
absolutely. We've billed them for 1.5 hours work. They've paid £75. We don't have that breakdown.
Thank you.
Councillor Matthews.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There was a little bit of duplication which confused me, but I'm on page 7, and there was just one for clarification, which is on health and safety. Can you? I think I probably know what it is, but just for those that are a little bit confused, like me, what is a fogging machine?
Ah. Well, Mr. Ferry, you can take this one. This is a good one for you.
It is exactly as it says. It sanitizes the whole of the room, the walls and absolutely everything, including the air, by fogging. You basically fog the room, you have to close it down, allow the fog to disperse through the windows, and then you go down and wipe it down. The Decon 7 fogging is what we're using. And, you know, they say if you do a room, it is, you know, it's about as good as it gets for 24 hours. So, you know, we're sort of doing the toilets and things mainly, but in between, we're also using the equipment to just wipe down sort of frequently used touch points.
So if I just go back a little bit on that, what it is, which I think might help to deconfuse Councillor Matthews, it's a chemical which is called Decon 7, which is put into this machine. I don't know if it's mixed with more water or whether when it comes into contact with the air, it creates a fog. So it creates like a cloud inside the room, and you do have to wear. We're told it's non-toxic, but you do have to wear the breathing apparatus at the same time, so it probably doesn't do any good. And you fog the room, and then once that fog disperses, that is how the sanitization then happens. Does that help?
Can I come back, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's absolutely marvellous. And I think you ought to pass on our thanks to St Hill Manor for their generosity. I think that's a cracking offer, and it's really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more hands up, so no more questions. So we're going to move on to item 8, burial service. Ms Jones has a report enclosed. Again, I'm assuming you've all read it, and I'm open for questions. Any questions on Ms Jones's reports? I'm going to start off with Councillor Sweatman. I can see your hand up. Councillor Sweatman? You're frozen.
Oh, he's frozen.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Sweatman. I'm going to go to Councillor Matthews, who's also got his hand up.
Yes, thank you. It's there's a couple of items that I'd like to speak on. And the first one is Mount Noddy Cemetery on page 11 at the top of the page. And it's just for clarification on that. It says current guidelines allow a maximum number of mourners for a full earthen burial to 30 and 15 for ashes. Why only 30 on a burial and 15 for ashes? Where's the logic in that? That's, and I'll come back to the others, each one, if you like.
Would you like me to answer that one first, Councillor?
Yes, please.
Okay, so those guidelines, I don't know why those numbers were picked. I would surmise, and it's my own personal thoughts, that because of the difference in hole size, if you pardon my bluntness, that people gathering around the outside of a grave, obviously you've got more ability to spread out, whereas those gathering around an ashes plot is obviously much smaller. So that may be why the decision was made by the government to stick with those numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Ms Jones. Councillor, you had another question.
I think on the cemetery records, it's just an observation, on the last paragraph, it is further intended that once this is complete, as the documents will be available publicly, any further requests for officers to spend time assisting in research the family history will be charged for this service, as this can take a great deal of time. I think that's a very good idea. And I think particularly over this COVID period, people have suddenly started digging into their family history. So I'm glad that we're charging for that.
You wouldn't believe the amount of inquiries on top of the really sharp increase we've had in applications for memorials for family members that all of a sudden would like to place understandably headstones on family members that perhaps have been laid to rest for a number of years, and obviously we're all aware of our own mortality at the moment. So we've had an increase in memorial applications and also a substantial increase in grave location inquiries. I tend to balance those. If it's a quick 5-minute search, then it's not something that I charge for. Obviously, if it's something that runs into a half hour or more, then we charge per half hour normally. And as we progress with the assistance of John Chisholm now joining the team of getting the records electronically updated, certainly that side of things will be hopefully done much quicker. But yes, definitely needed, because I think where people have had extra time on their hands, understandably they've wanted to learn more about their family's history.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's yeah, that's really interesting. Then on page 13, it's on the when I can find it. Yeah, it's regarding the cemetery and with the badges. That's on page 13 at the top there. I'm a little bit concerned that with the electric fencing that's going to be used, and the two things really, it's that once it's in place, I mean, I've had a shock off electric fences and it gives you a fair old whack. What is being done to protect the public if they go in there and are not aware of it?
So my understanding,
and I just want to follow on still with the fencing. Is this going to be a permanent thing there to exclude the badgers?
so
And because if it is, if it's not, rather, the badgers will come back.
So the intention, Harry will, I'd like Harry to add to this. My understanding of this is that the electric fencing would be a temporary measure while we establish proper fencing that prevents badgers from re-entering the cemetery, because while we're working with Natural Heritage to find a way forward, with obviously balancing the really sensitive issues around badgers being a protected species, and also the very sensitive issues around the disturbance of graves. The intent is that this will be a staged process with the support of Natural Heritage England. Nothing will be done without their consultation. But Harry or Julie, you may have further that you can add.
Yes, so Harry, if I can bring you in here, I
Yeah,
know
of
you're working
course,
on this,
of
and just
course.
clarification for everybody.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I've been communicating with Giles on this and on the main report. The installation of electric fencing, as Sarah quite rightly said, is completely temporary. It is there on a very low voltage where a human could not be hurt by the voltage, and where a badger cannot get hurt. I've had to do a lot of research into badgers, into how they are such a protective species, but also how sturdy and tough they are as animals. It was explained to me that the electric fencing, because I had the same concern, is enough for a badger to put its nose on it and then go, oh, that hurt, and then to walk away. It would not cause any kind of injury to a badger. It would simply deter them from going outside the area. I just wanted to say that because it's currently closed to the public, the cemetery, completely. So there is no risk of a human going in there whatsoever, as it's locked. So in that regard, we have the preventable measures there in place.
Can I come back, Chairman?
Yes, please, Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's closed to the public. I still think that there ought to be a warning sign there. I'm not concerned about the badgers being given a whack, but I'm concerned young teenagers and that, I mean, I can remember when I was a teenager, you go looking for trouble in a way.
Yes.
If you're a bit bored. So I think we ought to be aware that youngsters might get in there.
That was the intent anyway, just to put on the gates a warning sign, just to advise that electric fencing, although at a low voltage, would be present in the cemetery while it's a temporary measure. That is our intent, to ensure that there is notification of that's visible.
Oh, that's good. And through you, Chairman, I heard you say that Natural Heritage, you're working closely with them, and I do realise that badgers are extremely protected. But I think it would be a good idea to involve the local badger trust as well, not just Natural Heritage. Because to my knowledge, I don't think they're aware of anything. And
they are aware.
If I can come in there, please, Chairman. I've walked around that cemetery with the Badger Trust. They were there right at the very, very beginning of this entire process. We asked them for their views. We asked them for their ideas as to what we would be able to do to help to get rid of the badgers. They were our first port of call. And we have said that we will go back to them when we have got our plan, and to let them know what we're doing and how we're doing it, so they can be fully satisfied that everything we're doing is being done lawfully and in working with the national body, because obviously we've not been able to do anything. Everything we have to do is so regulated with regards to this. It's so difficult, but the intention has always been, and we will absolutely be going back to the Badger Trust so they know what we're doing. Ultimately, the decision has been once agreed by the national regulators. That's it. The options that the Badgers Trust originally suggested to us were simply not possible, and they knew that. We did have those conversations, but I promise you, as soon as, which has always been my intention fully, it's been once we know exactly where we're going, and it's all been through this committee after this evening, we will be bringing the Badger Trust absolutely up to date with where we are, so they know how it's happening. I promise you that, but they do know, and they've walked around there with me.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Town Clerk. And that is the East Grinstead Badger Trust, is it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else on that. No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Councillor Sweatman, you had your hand up and then disappeared for a while.
Yeah, apologies for that. I was on my desktop and I lost internet connection twice. So I've had to come back in. Luckily, I don't know why it's working on my iPad. So I have to stick my hand up because I'm not used to it with all the buttons and that. But I just came in on the end of the electric fencing bit. And I agree, okay, put a notice up there warning that there is an electric fence. But normally it's run off a 12-volt battery. And, you know, being on the farm when I was about 12 years old, you know, that just deters, it doesn't harm animals, it just deters them, anything, all sorts of animals, sheep, cattle, pigs, you name it. And I know what it's like because when I used to go out and move the electric fencing in the kale field where the cows used to graze, it was waist high, very wet, and they used to switch it on. So I used to get a bit of a belt, but it wasn't that bad. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And I believe that Councillor de Bell, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to point out that Councillor Sweatman had got back on and do it, but just so that I could let Dick have his word, bless him, because he was struggling to get in and he's having similar sort of problems to him. But I was just wondering, you know, is there a local teenager trust? Because what we need to do is protect them and maybe remove them from our cemetery. Do excuse me for being flippant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Town Mayor. Councillor Amos, you had your hand up. You're all right. Okay. So thank you. Before we move on, I'd just like to thank Ms Jones for all your hard work. It must be, especially with extra things you've got going on and limited numbers and the families that you have to deal with at this time. So I really do want to send all our thanks on to you and may things get better after Christmas and hopefully you'll be able to have more time to do the history of people's information rather than some of the other things that you're having to deal with.
Thank you. Really appreciate the acknowledgement. Since March, it has been off the scale, and I've been able to have the odd day off here or there. I'm hoping to have some time off over Christmas, but that obviously depends on whether our local funeral directors and mortuaries reach max capacity, which they normally do around Christmas time anyway, due to flu season. So we do have a plan B between myself and Mrs Merricks and the outside services team with regards to if there is a need for us to come in between Christmas and New Year. It is obviously tough working every day with families that have individuals in hospital with COVID that aren't looking like they are going to have a positive result. It's quite emotionally draining, but I'm really fortunate that I've got the support of the town clerk and Mrs Merricks and a number of other colleagues that when I've had a day when I've soaked up a little bit too much sadness, I can pick up the phone and talk it through. So, but thank you for the acknowledgement, it's appreciated.
You're very welcome. We really do thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Moving on to item 9. To note any delegated decisions this quarter, there's just one thing to note that which we've actually covered in the hot off the press was that the East Court was going to be used for the vaccination centre, and obviously we've now covered that because that's actually been confirmed today. So that's the only delegated decision that was made. So that's for noting. Moving on to item 10, which is the free use of Meridian Hall, East Court and the old courthouse. So this is where I have a proposal for this. We have discussed it previously, and I wish to make a proposal that people that use regular community using groups that are using free monthly rooms, that this gets reduced by 50% for the coming year of 2021-22. This would not include AGMs, It would not include presentations, surgeries, and any prostate screenings. May I have a second for this proposal?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
So now you throw it open for questions,
I
Chairman.
think Councillor Matthews has his hand raised, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Sorry, I'm a bit gobby tonight, Chairman, but it's a very interesting agenda. The question I'm asking is on page 13, and it's regarding the free use of Meridian Hall, East Corton Old Courthouse. And we've got the East Grinstead Society and the use of the Mayor's Parlour every 3 weeks free of charge to view. They have not replied. The group have not met as far as we know. However, the comments to the planning applications have continued to be supplied. My question is, and that also applies to East Grinstead Fair Trade on page 14, they haven't responded either. Do they give a date when they would like it? And if they do, whether they attend or not? I mean, it does create, and I spoke to the leader, Dick, the other day, and he told me that, you know, the caretaker is informed, the place has to be heated and that. Which is quite expensive. So does that happen whether they attend or not, or do they give us a previous notice? Thank you. Can you see what I'm getting at?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think I can answer you. If they don't attend and don't give notice that they don't attend, they then get charged. That's a policy that this committee brought in some time ago. That the free use rooms, if you fail to give appropriate notice that you're not coming, you will be charged for it. So. So they haven't been charged. I don't think we've ever charged anybody actually for this. So they haven't been charged because if they're not coming, they do let us know. But is that what you were asking?
Not really, Chairman, although I think it's a good idea. No, what I'm saying is that I'm hoping that the room isn't prepared unless they do say we are coming.
Oh, I see. Once it's in the diary, once it's in the book, we assume that they are coming and the room is prepared for them unless they tell us they're not coming. But they have to tell us they're not coming or they get charged.
Yeah, I think that's what's the word, the caveat. I think that it should be made clear to them that they may have it free of charge at the moment, but if they let us down and we've gone to unnecessary expense, they will be charged for it.
Yeah, they do know that.
Yeah, but thank you.
I believe Councillor Bell. Councillor de Bell, did you have a question?
I'm terribly sorry. No, that's very, very kind, Chair. All I wanted to say was regarding all the reports from the officers, full and comprehensive, some terrific work done by them. I'm sure you feel exactly the same way, as I'm sure does your deputy. We are very fortunate to have them. They work above and beyond. Their reports are brilliant, and I, for one, and I know a lot of other people, are very, very sorry to see Mrs. Spalding leaving. The amount of time, extra time that she put in over the years in what she was doing for us was absolutely exemplary. And I'm absolutely certain the entire committee would feel exactly the same way. And I would suggest that a vote of thanks be sent along to her for all of her hard work over the years. And I'm sure you would feel exactly the same way, Chair. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Town Mayor. Right, do we have any other questions or any other discussion? Thank you. I've got Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just reiterate what the proposal is? Are we looking to cut all room hires, regardless of how many times they have it a year by half?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add, you know, just in case other members, I think it's been mentioned, but we do have extra expense from the town council in as much the rooms after use have to be sanitised. And I think even when COVID is finished, this will probably be an ongoing thing as regarding to prevent flus and colds, you know, being transmitted. So cleanliness is a thing that I think we need to carry on for the future. And also the fact that has been pointed out to me is that when just one single room is used, it has to be heated in the wintertime, obviously, 2 hours before, and it's not just that room, it's the whole building. So that is actually quite expensive. And I think, you know, this is a fair point, you know, to cut all room hire by half, because you know, some groups have it 12 times a year, and during this COVID period, they've been obviously getting used to using Zoom. So I think to do half and half, I don't think it's been disingenuous to them. I think this has been fair, and obviously we as a council have lost a great deal of income this year, but equally, you know, we've got to look at our costs going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. Councillor Amos, did I see a hand raised?
Yes. Why do we need to heat the rooms? Why can't they go in there in cold rooms? I mean, when you pack a building out, it tends to get quite hot quite quickly when I've gone to AGMs.
If you wanted to have a proposal to say that free use rooms wouldn't be preheated, then we'll not turn the heating on. I mean, the rest of the building gets heated. There are certain rooms which, if the building gets heated, then they get heated. It's not quite that simple, and Mrs. Merricks can give a lot more detail about that than me, simply because we don't have an isolated heating system. We don't. It's the age of the building. Yeah. But if it's possible, if that's what committee would want us to do, that's something we could look at. I don't know if Alison can explain any more about the heating system.
I think legally we can't offer a room and not at a minimum heated temperature. I think it's if we have a standard, I think we have to have, you know, it doesn't have to be very hot, but I don't think you can offer a room cold. I don't know the legislation, but
yeah, I mean, we don't heat them in the summertime. Obviously, there's very few times when the heating is on.
Councillor.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think the other thing to bear in mind is something privately I've looked into. Turning a radiator off in one room in a large building like Eastcourt, the impact on the heating cost is very marginal. And, you know, I think we need to focus on large costs, key issues that drive the cost base within Eastcourt, and switching one radiator off or on for a 1 hour meeting in one room. Bearing in mind we have legal responsibilities is all. It is not a key issue we should be looking at. It's minor. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sweatman.
No, it's just a come in there. Thank you, Chairman. It's just there's also health and safety issues as well that come into this with, you know, heating and rooms. You know, you can't work in a room that is too cold. So the fact that we have to heat the whole building just for one room, you know, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
Sorry, I know this isn't my area, but knowing the grief, shall we say, that Mrs. Merricks occasionally gets with regards to trying to keep our regular hirers content and happy with the services that we provide. At the moment, with the loss of income that we've had elsewhere, I think all the while we are able to keep providing a service that people that are happy with, i.e. a room that is meets correct standards, etc., and encourages repeat bookings, is certainly not a bad thing.
Thank you. Is there anybody with anything else? Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's not often I come to defence of Councillor Amos. Very, very rarely, but this is one occasion where I think I will. I'm sure he didn't mean that if the place was heated, that somebody wanted to use the room, that we deliberately turn the heating off. I'm sure he didn't mean that. But I think if we are, my concern is if the place is not heated, and then we literally have to heat the whole building just for that one use. I think that ought to be looked at, but I think that if they are going to use it, they ought to be made aware of the cost, particularly in the winter, and not to treat that privilege lightly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So if I can just clarify my proposal so that we can then move to vote. So it's to propose that the regular community groups that use the meeting rooms reduce this by 50% moving forward for 2021-22. This will not include AGMs, presentations, surgeries and the prostate screening. And as we know now, that also has the caveat in that if they don't turn up and we have heated up, they are then expected to pay. Is that correct, Town Clerk? So that's my proposal. I had my second by Councillor Peacock. I'd like to move that to the vote. So all those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think you're definitely past that one, Chair. Yeah.
I think that's everybody. Even Councillor DeBell had a thumbs up there, so I knew that he was voting, even though I couldn't see him. So thank you, Councillor DeBell. Right, moving on to item 11. I've lost my agenda. That's handy, isn't it? So item 11, events moving forward for 2021. This is for noting. We hope that many of these will happen, but obviously we don't know at the moment what restrictions will be in place, what will be lifted, and therefore the early spring events, we don't know what will go ahead. We are hopeful. So is there anything anybody would like to say on that? No? Okay. Item agenda number 12, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, June 2022. It seems so far away. The late spring May bank holiday has moved from the Monday to Thursday, the 2nd of June, and an additional bank holiday has been added Friday, the 3rd of June 2020. We are looking to, I'm looking at the committee to see what they want to suggest that we move forward with plans for that as a town, and what group will put together to coordinate this. Is there any more to add to that, Town Clerk?
No, I don't think so, Chairman. It's really at this stage, what do committee want to do? But we're not asking you for your ideas to celebrate the Jubilee. It's just a reminder that back in 2012, and Councillor Osborne will remember it well because he chaired it, we did have a working group which initially included lots and lots of different organisations in the town, and we coordinated as a town what we were going to do, and then that way it didn't all sit at the town council. It was led by the councillors, and obviously the elements that the town council got involved with came back through committee, and that's where the officers then got involved. But it's really a case of it sounds a long time away. In 2012 we started planning in September 2011. I would really like to have a little bit more notice. So this is my plea. If you wish to do something for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and I appreciate it's a long time away yet, and I appreciate that she is elderly. However, at the moment, the national assumption is this will go ahead, and it's really a case of, do you want to start planning it now? If you don't, we'll shelve it for a while. But this is for you to start thinking about it, and maybe setting up a working group or whatever.
Thank you, Town Clerk. I have Councillor Sweatman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I don't think obviously a decision can be made now, but I think off screen we need to get together, get all our heads together and see what we want to do. Hopefully we can. I know when we done the Queen's Jubilee Parade, it took a lot of months to actually get that organised, probably about 9 months. I'm sure Councillor Osborne remembers that. So we need to do it within the next year because it does take a lot of organising. So I think that's something we need to discuss as a group. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Sweatman. I think that we need to start looking at this as soon as possible to get something really planned. And looking at the original plans for the last Jubilee, it doesn't look as though we need to go much further than that. It looks really good. And obviously Councillor Osborne was in the chair on that one. So I think that there's a lot of good things out of that. And I think come 2022, with hopefully COVID behind us completely, the town and indeed the country will look forward to having a real good knees up. And the more we put into planning that, as Councillor Sweatman says, as soon as we can, I think the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Mayor. Councillor Osborne.
Well, I've been involved in more than that. I was involved in the Silver Jubilee, the Millennium, the Golden Jubilee. No, perhaps not the Golden Jubilee, but the last one. What was the last one? I get confused.
Diamond.
Yeah, Diamond, that's right. So I can tell you, you can't give yourself enough time for this. You really do have to decide you're going to do it pretty early on. And you can't possibly do it without getting involved as many organisations as possible. What you want to do is get them to take the job off your hand and be responsible for an event. And then we coordinate the events and we create a programme. And we may need to do a little bit of pump priming here and there, but all sorts of people have a go. I mean, the church, all the kids, we've had, in the past, we've had Women's Institute, Town 20, just about everybody you can think of, every organisation in the town, they've all contributed. So I think if you give a good early warning thing and get them to think about what they're going to do, that gets you off to a good start. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Wise words. Thank you. Councillor Amos.
Yes, I'm a great admirer of the Queen, but I don't think taxpayers' money should essentially be used to fund the celebration of the monarchy. I don't think that would be fair on Republicans, of which I am not one. So although I have no objection to councillors in a personal capacity arranging things, and if the town clerk and other council officials don't want to get involved, if they want to get involved, as long as it doesn't crowd out any of the other work, I would have no objection. But I don't think the town council should put any money into this because it is taxing Republicans to fund a monarchist celebration. And I'm sure in the past that would have led to, it wouldn't have led to battles, but you know what I mean.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. I have no other hands up, so I think that the next move for this is to take this forward and start planning things and getting a working party together and get things working as early as possible to work with the town clerk at the earliest convenience and to get other groups involved. So we'll discuss that at another point and pull that together. So thank you, committee. Right, moving on to item 13. Estate policies revision. There's just two policies to look at there, and they're really just to be brought to our attention by Mrs. Merrickson. It's One of them is about learner drivers and needing new signage. Learner drivers are starting to use East Court because a lot of other places aren't having learner drivers. Lots of public car parks and I know other local authorities don't have them in. And it's whether we decided whether we wanted to follow example at East Court and whether we want to revise a policy on that and put up signage. And the other one is for to put a cost, an administration charge of £10 plus VAT on the cost of the administration for advertising street banners. So if we'll start off with the learner drivers policy, whether anyone wants to make a revision to that now. So if I can throw that open, and the first hand up is Councillor Amos.
Yes, I do not think that there should be any signs prohibiting learner drivers from going into that car park. The council as a whole makes quite a point of the town council belonging to the community. And I think if it really belongs to the community, then that should include 16 to 17-year-olds and older individuals who want to learn to drive. Because ultimately, if this goes on, everywhere will be excluded to them.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Is there anybody else? I have no hands up. Anyone else? Councillor Sweatman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, if you will notice, I think a lot of the district council car parks have put up notices to discourage learner drivers, and don't forget, especially up by the Meridian Stone in our car parks, you know, they're for our hirers and our staff. You know, it was sometimes you go into that car park, even on the other side by the toilets, it's full up. You know, I don't think it's really a place in a full car park, you know, for learner drivers to practice their skills. I'm sure there's other places where they could go. So I think I'm quite in favour of having a notice put up to discourage learner drivers from using the town council car parks for practicing. I mean, to be quite honest, if necessary, they could go down the drive to the pavilion and practice turning around there. There's not many cars, but you know that's on district land at the moment. Although, having said that, it's discouraging a lot of the car parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. And if I can bring in the Town Mayor, Councillor de Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I take Councillor Sweatman's very valid point that parked cars and learner drivers don't mix. But, however, I remember when I was teaching my dear son how to learn to drive, I used to take him down to the Felbridge Industrial Estate at the weekends when it was totally empty, and teaching clutch control on that. What I would suggest is, and I'm sure this would find favour with Councillor Amos, if we are going to allow learner drivers to use part of the car park somewhere on the estate, which is it belongs to us, we should quite possibly charge for this and make it at such an occasion when it isn't being used for staff, etc., for car parking, and actually delineate which part of it might be used. Just a thought, but I thought that the opportunity to charge might well fit in with Councillor Amos's ideas on things. Thank you.
So I'm just going to bring in one more. I'm going to bring in Councillor Matthews.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got a certain sympathy with Councillor Amos, but I am concerned with the safety issue of learner drivers on East Court, particularly with youngsters and that around. I must say that I don't think they should be using our place, really. As the town mayor said, there are other places, particularly the industrial places on weekends, which are really very quiet. So, yeah, I think I'm in favour of actually discouraging them.
Thank you. I'm just going to take Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, I think I agree that you don't want learner drivers practicing. I'm not so sure that if a chap comes up here and you're going to an event here or coming to East Court, and you've got an L plate on your car and your wife is driving it and you're with her, or it's an opportunity for them to drive, that you want to come down on them at all. So I think you need to just be a bit more specific and maybe put a sign up at the entrance of East Court saying not suitable for learner drivers practicing or something like that, you know. But I think the car parks for the legitimate use, somebody's paid their tax, they got a car, they paid their local taxes, and they're not here to practice, they're here to come here to use the facilities. That would be all right with me. But if you say no learner drivers, it's perhaps a little bit too wide sweeping, you know.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. I'm going to go to Councillor Mainstone.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've got grave concerns that this could be very dangerous, because other members of the public with children, etc., use East Court for their leisure. And leisure and learner drivers, in my head, don't really go together. The fact that you're going up there for leisure, you're not expected to sort of look out for learner drivers reversing into spaces, etc., etc. So I would be keen to sort of deter them as much as I could.
Thank you. Can I just ask the town clerk to come in at this point?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to remind you all that we only have 90 spaces in our car park, and when we have a big wedding or two weddings or a wedding and a funeral taking place at the same time, or even just a conference, those 90 spaces fill up quite quickly. So as much as I do like Councillor DeBell's entrepreneurial spirit with regards to just cordoning off an area of the car park and charging for it, the reality is that's just not something we'd be able to do. So I just wanted to throw that in, just to remind you it's not perhaps as big as you think it is.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Councillor Amos, then I'll go to Mrs. Merricks.
Yeah, all of the objections that have been raised to learner drivers going into these car parks can be used for virtually every other car park in the town. And there will come a point where all car parks ban learner drivers. And this committee makes a constant point of the town council belongs to the community. If it belongs to the community, surely learner drivers, who are part of the community, should be able to use the car park. Now, I do understand some of the objections that particularly the town clerk has put forward, and I'd accept those. But if we are going to stop learner drivers from going into the town council car park, then a district council car park needs to be freed, and therefore I don't think we should do anything to the availability of this car park in East Grinstead, or rather at the town council, before something is done at the district council. If the community owns these assets, then they ought to be able to use them.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Mrs. Merricks.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to one of the questions. Mid Sussex actually just put no learner driver training. So yeah. Councillor Osborne was sort of saying no learners, and I agree. It's it's not putting off someone who's just driven really to the event. Yes, that is what Mid Sussex say, and it was just I just wanted to reiterate sort of their signs, if that helps at all.
Thank you for the clarity. Thank you. Does that help you out, Councillor Osborne?
Sorry.
That helps you with your.
Yeah, that's all. She made it much better than me. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. So, moving forward, does anyone wish to make a proposal to add this? No learner. Town Clerk, sorry, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say, Chairman, Councillor Amos still has his hand up, so I don't know if he wanted to come back. No, he's done. Right, sorry.
So, does anyone wish to propose that we have no learner driver training in our car parks and have signage to match that?
I second that.
I said, would some? Am I proposing that?
Well,
I am proposing.
I'll second.
Shall I make it clear, Town Clerk? Shall I say it again to make it clear?
Before you do, Chairman, if I just say that at the moment we have got signage up. Our signage does say that the car parks are only to be used by people who are using the buildings. So effectively at the moment, the car parks don't welcome driver training to be used in the car park. It's already there. So if you wanted to actually make a proposal to erect signage to say no learners, that would be something different to what we currently have. But at the moment, it's already there by exception, if you like. Yeah, default. Yeah. So I don't know if that's helpful before you actually choose your wording for the proposal.
I think you want it on the roads as well, surely, though, because you don't want him coming on the roads. You know, if they're coming here to train, you want this. I would have thought you want to put that sign up at the entrance, top and bottom of each school, one at each end.
I think with East Court though, Councillor Osborne, and please correct me, Town Clerk, if I'm wrong, it's the car parks that are being used for functions that are then full of cars that are then having the learner drivers practicing their parking, etc., which is causing the issue as opposed to them actually driving through the estate.
That was the reason for bringing it to the committee. I'm not aware particularly they drive through the estate. I presume they do, but assumedly they get much more out of driving on the proper roads. If they come into the estate, I assume it's because they want to do some parallel parking or parking in spaces. I haven't spoken to any learners. We've just seen them.
So before I put a proposal forward, there is just Councillor Matthews got his hand up for the last point on this, and then I'll move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think if we're a bit woolly on this, I think that it will be totally ignored. And I think the point that the town clerk has made regarding the people that hired the halls, the funerals, the weddings, and that space is tight. And the last thing we need is people reversing and just taking up space. And I think on a safety issue as well. I'd discourage it. So I think the original proposal, sort of banning learner drivers, I'd be quite happy to support that.
Councillor Woodgate, sorry, I'm going to let you speak because you've not said anything on this point.
Thank you, Chair. All I was going to say is if we wanted to try and save money and try and get the word out, why don't we try a social media response and put something out asking people to not to do this, and then we could try and resolve the situation without spending any money on signage. Might be worth a try until the next meeting, maybe.
Town Clerk.
That could certainly be something that is sensible compromise, that we ask people not to come and use it without spending money and sticking up signs.
I think it's too woolly.
It's down to the committee.
I'm going to move forward with a proposal, and then we'll move forward on there because we're getting mixed messages. So let's put it to the vote, and then we can get our message across that way. So my proposal is that we add signage to the East Court car parks to say no learner driver training. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Chairman.
Councillor Maidstone. And if I can now take that to the vote.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's carried. I mean, by all means, say against, but I'm afraid it is carried.
Against?
Thank God for that.
Thank you. So moving on, we've got the advertising street banners, and we're looking to add a charge, an administrative charge of £10 plus VAT to assist all the covering of administrative costs for the implementation of said banners. I propose that we move forward to accept this charge. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Maidstone. And if we can vote on that, please. Keep your hands up for the town clerk to count. Thank you.
I think you're definitely covered. Definitely done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, moving on to Item 14. To consider a motion put forward by Councillor Amos in light of the unprecedented high levels of taxation in East Grinstead and with a wish to cut expenditure, it is proposed to desist with all funding to the East Court play area for the remainder of this year and 2021-22. Councillor Amos, you may speak on this and propose it.
Yes, that is the proposal. Thank you very much. So the total cost of the play area is £7,500 for this year. And I have a number of points I'd like to make, but I'll keep it brief. I believe government is only there to protect the individual rights to life, liberty and property. This is not part of that. It's therefore not government's responsibility. It's not the role of government to subsidise one group at the expense of the other, and that is what is being done here. Therefore, it should go. But does the town still want a playground? It may well want that. And instead of having the town council run it, I don't see why the community can't run it, because it must be understood that politicians and the community are two different sets of people. We are not the community. We are merely a part of it. And therefore, if this were to be voted for, I would propose a privatisation of the piece of land. And this could be funded via two measures. Either it could be funded via the bundling of playing in the park, along with an ice cream van or a cake van or a coffee van, etc., whatever is the most profitable, or it could be funded via erecting very large fences and then charging people to enter with a door that allows them out whenever they want to. And importantly, this privatisation could involve selling shares to the community. So the people who use it, not politicians, not us, but the people who use it actually own it. And that way, they will be able to determine what they want to do with it. They'll be able to determine whether or not they want a cake van there. They'll be able to determine what kind of investment they want to put forward. They'll be able to determine the charge or not the charge. So I would propose this motion, which would have to follow with a privatisation of the piece of land, which the park is on, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Do I have a second for this proposal? So there's no second for this proposal, so I'm afraid that proposal is not carried. So following that, that's the final agenda item that we have this evening. So the next meeting of this committee will be held on Thursday, the 14th of January 2021. This will be for budget setting, and then on Thursday, the 18th of March 2021 for the full meeting. There are no other agenda items, therefore I close this meeting at 20:22. And the clerk, would you please stop recording?